see Brad there already. Hiya, Brad.
Hi, Sri. How are you?
I'm very good. Good to see you after a long time, mate.
It's good to see you, my friend.
Yeah, and you look a lot younger every time I see you. What's going on?
Oh, please, that's your standard line. You use that on me every year.
No, but it is true. It is true.
Well,
Fantastic. Good to
social
see you,
media,
Brad.
we have those filters, so maybe it's the filter I'm using.
Oh, that's super. How is the little one doing?
Oh, very good, very good. It's nap time now, so it's a good time to do this.
I know. Hi, Mr. Nathan. How are we doing today?
I'm Nathan and I'm doing very well, thank you.
Yes, of course, Nathan. Fantastic. I'm sorry. I just pronounced you as Nathan. I'm sorry. Thank you so much for being part of this panel. I can see Mr. Raj Gupta as well, but his one second, I'm trying to get him to unmute. Yeah, there you go. Thank you so much, Raj. Thank you for being here. Fantastic.
Thank you. Thank you.
Good to see you. And Amit, hi Amit, how are you? I can't hear you very well. Could you unmute yourself, please?
Yeah, good afternoon.
Hi, very
Fine.
good afternoon. Fantastic, good to see you, mate. You've got
I'm going to lose my jacket.
no worries. I think you've got a fantastic background. Is that a virtual background or the real one?
That's right. That's right. It's a virtual background.
All right. I thought you are in the office and the people have gone for lunch. Excellent. Saurabh, hi, how are you?
Hi, good afternoon. I'm doing fine. Thank you. Pretty
Very
excited to be here.
Fantastic. Hi, Saurabh. I have, before I hand this over to the fantastic panel that we have, I just have one question. Some time ago, about a year, 2 years ago, you guys used to come up with a fantastic advertisement. For some reason, you guys have stopped it. So I just want to know why. Before we get on to serious business.
Was that question for me?
Yes, of course.
Yeah, absolutely. So, we were very focused locally on our markets and kind of a huge marketing spend for consumer acquisition. Right now, the product is going global, and that's where we're a little slow. Our idea was to launch it in July,
Right.
but we're taking baby steps considering what is going on around here.
All right, because at one point in time, your ads and your jingles were at the top of the town. I don't know if you remember that. So.
Yeah, but last year we did a refresher. I'm going to send you the links.
Fantastic. Excellent. I think we're waiting for Samita to join us as well. Just give us a second. I'm trying to get Samita online. I'll try and get Mr. Roy to help me to get Samita online. Just give me a second, please. Unable to see her. Just give me a second. Let me try and see. Okay. I will try and connect her. Probably she's with a different name. So give me a second, guys. Okay. If you can, guys, please allow me a minute or two. I will, I mean, less than a minute. I'll try and
Samida is messaging saying that she's being shown as Mohanty. I don't see any Mohanty here.
she is signed in as Mohanty.
Mohan- yeah.
She is signed in with a different name, so we were trying to find her first name. Just give us a second, please. So. Roy, are you able to find Mohanty? Yeah. Oh, okay, thank you. I'm sorry, gentlemen. We're trying to find their.
Hi, everyone.
Hi.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh
you
my
are. I can hear you. Now I can see you.
Hi.
Fantastic. So, yeah. How are you doing?
Very well. Sorry about that.
No,
I
no,
should
no
have
worries. Come
messaged, I
on.
think
We should all have a reason to laugh and have fun. So this is not a
no,
time.
the funny part is I've been, kind of been in touch with the panelists, and they're all here and they're all looking very dapper and smart and ready. And, I think,
I
so
think
sorry about that.
no, no
I've
worries at
come
all.
from.
We're just waiting for you to kickstart so I can sit back and have a cup of tea.
Wonderful.
Very
I
important,
also have
Samida,
my.
for you to be absolutely relaxed, for us to have a nicer session.
Absolutely.
I'm
Just chill, chill.
I'm very relaxed. I have
Because
wonderful panelists, amazing stalwarts. I have nothing to worry. You're the one who's going to do all the hard work, Amit, and rest.
no, because Samida, you've been. I don't know if you missed my statement. You've been a star as far as we are concerned. Impact Global, you've been very helpful, and thank you so much for all the help.
It's a pleasure. I cannot tell you. I think Helen is a rock star, and I keep
Ah,
telling her that. She's very humble as well. And the team, I got a call from the team in the morning, and I don't know who called me, but I said, I think all of you are doing such a brilliant job. Like, our compliments to the entire team from all of us here. So thank you so
thank
much.
you.
It's been
Thank
a pleasure to be
Same
associated.
here, Samida. I'm going to
Great.
let you off the stage if you can, please. And there you go. Take it away, please.
Thank you
You're the
so
boss.
much. Thank you so much. Lovely to have all of you once again. A very good morning and good afternoon, because we have Brad who's joined us from the Middle East. I understand audience joining us from all over, and we'll quickly get started. We've been looking forward to this, and I was hearing Mr. Ratnesh talk, and believe it or not, my first line was actually that I wanted to start with is something that he left the segue with. So. Our panel discussion, of course, is around a topic which is very dear to all of us, but it got me thinking that change is beautiful. We fear change, and we have all these change management classes. But I think a very key aspect of change that we sometimes miss out on is the power of change to drive transformation and evolution. And I think, we kind of have to look at it in a way that it's that polishing. Somebody, John in the morning said, Stephen Covey. So this is that sharpening of the saw that happens to you. The process could be a little painful, but you definitely emerge a lot more fitter, better, resilient. And to introduce the context of why are we going to look at Fit for Future, I think everyone has been talking about Industrial Revolution 4.0. But as I see the panelists, and I'm very happy that Soumya has also now been able to join in, I think we are almost at a cusp of an Industrial Revolution 5.0. And I'll tell you why I say that. I mean, so far, I think organizations have been looking at artificial intelligence, deep learning, machine learning, etc., purely from a reskilling, upskilling standpoint. But today, we have the opportunity to discuss really fit for future organizations, and discuss it in its full glory as we get ready for the new normal. So with that, it gives me great pleasure to introduce a very illustrious group of leaders who are all stalwarts in our fraternity, and I'm going to quickly take a minute to introduce all of them. So we have with us Nathan. Nathan SV is partner and chief talent officer for Deloitte India, and beautiful things that we hear about Nathan's work in Deloitte and for the fraternity. So welcome, Nathan. We also have Amit Das, and if the background did not give it away, let me still call it out. Director HR and CHRO, Bennett Coleman Company Limited, which is the Times of India Group, a very, very well-known time in group. And Amit is also another one of those folks who's very active on the fraternity. So very warm welcome, Amit. We have Raj Gupta, and amazing work that you've done, Raj, as a speaker, author, general manager HR for TCS. So a very warm welcome to you, Raj. Dr. Soumya, she is General Manager Corporate Strategy for HR with Gold Star Jewelry. Thanks for joining, Soumya. Good to see you. Brad Boyson. Brad is the co-founder of HR Learning. He's based out of Dubai, and he's also formerly held the position of being the head of SHRM in the Middle East. So thanks for joining, Brad. Good to have you here. And last but certainly not the least, Saurabh. Saurabh Sharma is the Regional Head Talent Acquisition for APAC for the OLX Group. So thank you, everyone. Once again, like I said, great to have the panelists. And without further ado, we will quickly move. Before that, a quick introduction about me. I'm Samidha Mohanty, everyone. I head the Charters for Learning, Talent, and D&I for Voice India, formerly known as Vodafone Shared Services. And Fit for Future is a separate pillar that I've been leading for Voice. And it's been an amazing journey to lead the Fit for Future Charter. But today, I'm excited about the questions I've put together for this very illustrious panel, like I called out. So to begin with, this question is to all of you, and I will go one by one. So the first question that I have for the panel is, what does future of work and being a fit for future organization mean to you? Your thoughts on the same. What is future of work to you, and what would be a fit for future organization being able to do that future of work? So if we could start with Amit, your thoughts, Amit.
Sure. Thank you, Samida, for the nice introduction and the context setting. So while all of us know that the VUCA has become the new normal for the business world for quite some time now, we have been talking about it, but a disruption like the current one that we are going through, this COVID pandemic, actually it has been an acid test for leadership across global organizations. So we have already witnessed the emergence of new business models, influx of new age workforce like the millennials and the Gen Zs who are knocking the door, and also the sweeping digital disruption in a knowledge-driven networked organizational ecosystem. So when we try to imagine the future world of work, I think we need to have an incredible amount of foresight as well as planning for the business and the way we manage the workplace when the world of work is recalibrating itself into a new normal. So I think instead of trying to predict the future of work only, I foresee a simultaneous transformation, what I said, 3 Ws, which is work, workforce, and workplace in the near future. So the starting assumption for making organizations more resilient and making them fit for future is to first understand ourselves that we have to assume that none of the crises that we have experienced in the past will reappear in a similar manner in the future as well. So there's no point in practicing and preparing for the responses to those specific catastrophes. That's one. Now, people try to predict the future normally as more as a psychological tool to deal with the present crisis. That's a normal human behavior. However, I think the scenario planning is a better way of looking at the future. When I say scenarios are not predictions, but they are plausible stories about the future. They are designed to help us break the habit that future will also not look like the present. Yeah. So I think the linear prediction of future is too simplistic at the same time. We need to proactively engage the organization leadership into multiple scenario building approach. We need to understand the challenges and implications for each of these scenarios, and we have to help co-create the workflows, re-engineer the roles, the new productivity metrics, and of course, with the infusion of the right technology in a very collaborative manner. Now, the future of workforce obviously will, in my mind, look for instant gratification. We are already seeing that happening with our millennial workforce and the Gen Zs who are coming in as more as trainees and interns. They will look for opportunities to fulfill their purpose. They will expect more life in the job than the job for life. Their aspirations will be around portfolio career, where they can dabble around with multiple roles in a much more flatter, project-based, collaborative organization structure. They will seek more empowerment and freedom to do more experimentation at the workplace. And also, we need to have entrepreneurial opportunities given to them within the stability of a very progressive and ethical organization. So the new world of business, I would say the organizations need to recreate the employee experiences across all the employee lifecycle touchpoints, which are relevant and provide those high moments of truth in a very hyper customized manner, which caters to a specific unique needs of those individuals. So while we would see a massive shift in the ways of working going forward, I believe the biggest shift post-COVID going forward will be the mindset shift. And I think the differentiating factor will be how we demonstrate agility, adaptability, the critical thinking and growth mindset to create that anti-fragility, which is not only for our own organizations, but to also for the overall business ecosystem at large.
That's wonderful points, and thank you so much. Could I request Nathan to step in and share your views on, what is in your mind would be the future of work in a fit for future organization, Nathan?
Hey, Samita, first of all, you should not get me immediately after Amit because it seems all too complete. But I'll take a stab at it. I promise to keep it to well under about 2 minutes. But see, the future is not what it used to be, said Yogi Berra. To me, yeah. To me, what F Cube means, or Fit for Future means, is an opportunity to revise, to review, to renovate, to innovate, and provide new talent experience, which is at one end, to providing significant value to the business at the other. I mean, today is the day when closely held beliefs have all been moved out.
That's right.
And things that we found were almost impossible to do are almost the de rigueur of today. Our opportunity to digitize and lead the digital transformation is huge. I see huge opportunity in moving to digital learning, for instance. I mean, that is certainly up your, up your alley. But this is the one that I see as the single big shift that we're going to see. I mean, all this classroom training, and today people are moving to 80% of digital content and 20% of in-person learning. Yeah, classroom learning. I see an opportunity to address the human side of our workforce because today, technology has created a huge opportunity for us. Something that we always knew, but now we are seeing that transformation happen in front of us. I see an opportunity to create new ways of working, make the workplace work for both the organization and the individual. Gone are the days when you really have to travel 2 hours up and 2 hours down in any of the metros. You pick your metro and you know what kind of effort it takes. I see opportunities for working on new talent models, new career progression, new opportunities, several ways of engaging women who are currently our top talent, and they are waiting in the wings to come back to work. I'm talking about inclusion. Many of our talented women would like to make a contribution. I see opportunities for us to train and bring them back into the workforce. I see an opportunity to move from hope to action, from action to feedback, feedback to a renewed commitment to a meaningful outcome. To me, F Cube represents Carpe Diem, seizing the moment. Back to you.
Very, very nicely done, Nathan. Thank you so much. I hear a lot of, after Amit's talk on the multiple processes and from you, Nathan, on the entire human aspect and the part that, we all need to play from an inclusion standpoint, from a readiness standpoint. I'd love to have Raj, your thoughts on the Fit for Future agenda as you see it.
I think as Nathan was saying, talking after Amit and talking after Nathan, we consider
himself,
as a lighthouse. So
yeah,
anyway,
that's both of them.
I'll attempt it. I think the way I see it in the context of Industry 4.0, SMAC, which we say Social Mobile Cloud Analytics, that was already taking center stage alongside machine learning, deep learning, chatbots, etc. and changing the rules of the game. So we were already talking about pre-COVID business unusual instead of business as usual. We were talking about instead of span of control, we were talking about man to machine ratios. Instead of your contract models were also shifting from time and material to outcome based. So that shift was already taking place, and disruption was going on. What COVID has done, that has accelerated the shift and made it mandatory. So technology adoption is no longer a luxury, but a need that you cannot avoid. So in that context, when I see three major trends that are emerging. Number one, there is a structural shift in future of work and workplaces. Now, when we look at workplaces were meant to enhance camaraderie, collaboration, engagement. Now, the challenge in front of HR leaders across the globe is how they translate the same collaboration, same engagement, same kind of camaraderie in virtual modes, leveraging various platforms that has started mushrooming in the industry. When you look at work, while the boundaries has blurred in terms of work-life balance, while the time has been saved in terms of travel, etc., and working from home as a practice was a competitive advantage in earlier context. So it was an additional offering. But now, particularly in IT and ITS industry, it is the norm for the last few months, and they have done it rapidly. So the way we work will fundamentally shift. So that is one. Second, what I see a mammoth shift in education and learning landscape that Nathan also touched upon. I think this is education industry is going to turn upside down. Whatever they could have achieved in the next 10, 15 years, they are going to achieve it in the next, 1 or 2 years. EdTech, if we look at it, was already making, strides, and it will move, as we go along. We never thought our existing teaching community getting used to online sessions across the spectrum of education. Our children from junior grades also getting used to online education was never, fathomed with the pace that it has happened. So second, I see is this mammoth shift in education and learning landscape. The third biggest change that I see is, amidst million of job losses, is shift to gig economy. Now, companies also, will look to leverage the gig worker. Instead of hiring somebody at a full time, they would go for a project-based assignments. And this offers a great opportunity to people who are in the small scale industry or maybe individual entrepreneur. Because they could offer, as I call it, Japanese quality as Chinese price. So gig is a big thing. One of the biggest challenge, particularly in the developing world, is regulation around gig. So I think that government all over the world is taking cognizance of that, and we will see far more regulations around gig. So these are.
And we'll definitely have a conversation, because I think it's a very critical one to discuss that compliance and regulatory part from a fit for future standpoint as well. So I think that's a wonderful point that you brought in, Raj. Thank you so much. From that, Soumya, thank you so much. Soumya, your thoughts, please. I know between Amit, Nathan, and Raj, there's a lot of good stuff that we have now to ponder over. But really want to hear, Saurabh, Brad. Anything left? No, but if there's anything at all, otherwise we could always move to the questions. But just maybe anything top of mind besides this, Soumya, anything that you think?
Just that, I represent the manufacturing industry, and in the manufacturing industry, it was always thought of that on-site is where the engagement happens and the work happens. So no one ever in their wildest thoughts ever thought that we would be moving away and there would be a hybrid culture that would be developing. So what we are seeing today in the manufacturing sector, and that too in luxury, is that I'm seeing a hybrid sector that has come about and is, coming up in a big way. It's doing its major part in playing right. I have designers who are working off-site, and I have the manufacturing and the artisans and the craftsmen who are working inside the factory. So that's a beautiful amalgamation of both the worlds that is happening there, and that is something which is very interesting. Second is that we are luxury. So we are the last and the most hit, in the entire spectrum. But at the end of the day, what we actually found is that we have to have that resilience. In 2008, we survived, because of the CEOs of the world. Now is the time for all the CHROs to come up and, create that entire gamut and play around what is happening, especially keeping your workforce and your people as your central point. Now that is where we also are now seeing expanded engagements. We're crossing the borders, crossing the thresholds, or we're advising them on the financial plannings, which we were not doing earlier. We're talking about the mental health. We're seeing, one part of you gets satiated at home, but the other part of you, which goes on to the office and you're talking and you're just achieving something. That part, kind of is not addressed to while you're doing the work from home, or call it work from anywhere. So that is one thing that is also requiring a lot of engagement. And certainly we're seeing a lot of health issues that are coming around, because people are forced to lead a sedentary lifestyle, if I can say so, because you're all cooped up inside the house in the apartments. So this is where we are breaking boundaries. We are going out and, shaking the mindsets and creating that mind shift in the minds of artisans who are actually coming from slums. Is a daunting task, but somewhere we are successful and we are doing our best. So that's what we are, all about creating a relevance and, having a lot of resilience to, work.
But that's wonderful, Soumya, because I think you also brought in addition to all the points discussed, the whole community aspect and the fact that, you're going above and beyond. So thank you for that. Saurabh, your thoughts about, like I said, in addition to all of the pointers mentioned, but would love to hear your thoughts as well.
Sure, thanks, Amita. So I'll start by mentioning a famous quote from an American fiction writer, William Gibson. The future is already here. It's just not evenly distributed. And what we are experiencing in these current times, that it's more and more people who are getting adopted to digital ways of working, and it's kind of getting globalized or standardized. So basically three things I feel that are the forces of change which we all are experiencing around us. First is, like everybody talked, technology advances, area of robotics, artificial intelligence, sensors and data. They've created new ways of getting work done. So since a lot has been covered, so I'll move on to the next part, which is demographics. And this is a very interesting one. Raj spoke about gig economy. See, the even more interesting part here is to see that population is becoming both older and younger, with individual nations becoming more diverse and more challenging. Right. So the younger generation is more getting concentrated in developing economies, while the developed economies, and of course, including some countries like China, get ever older. So it is also substantial increase in seniors participating in gig economy out of post-retirement desires or even necessity. In parallel, right, developing economies are supplying a growing share of young workers to this entire global workforce. And that brings me to my third point, which talks about customer empowerment and the rise of global talent markets. So institutions and prospective workers now both have access to this global talent markets thanks to tools like LinkedIn, which are platforms and networks where they can freely interact with each other and no middle person involved or no expensive agencies involved in this kind of search.
Right.
And I want to keep my candidates being representing talent acquisition and human resources as my customers. I see a great parallels. I see customers are acquiring more power related to vendors because of their ability to choose across a product and services globally. They have more access to information available. They can switch from one vendor to other easily. And that's where the real customer empowerment is coming in industries. And if you see around us, at the same time, if you look at the smaller customized industries, even the small manufacturers and small service providers now have access to the right tools for manufacturing or services, so that they can also produce customized products. And of course, coming to people, definitely then people have a greater leverage to kind of not stick to one career throughout their life, but rather make it a journey of experiences. And I'm going to speak more about when it comes as a question.
Yes, the questions. Yes,
but
I have a good set. But
thank you.
I think it was wonderful, Saurabh, to hear the talent part of it, and the fact that platforms, the middlemen platforms, are vanishing, and they'll happen more and more so as we grow. So thanks for bringing that up, Brad. Before we move into the questions, your thoughts.
Yeah, thank you, Smita. I kind of start with a lot of the speakers so far have talked about the future from a today perspective. And I think of it going back to my second HR job many years ago, 20 years ago, in fact, and being recruited for that position. And one of the selling points at that time was what a great pension the organization had. And think how much things have changed since then. The idea that when you're recruiting a young person, I was in my late 20s at that time, and you say, spend the next 30 to 35 years working for us, and you'll get a wonderful pension. What about the work? What about the job? What about the engagement? So when I look at sort of the future of work, I think from an HR point of view, one of the responsibilities we all have is to focus on purpose, not jobs. And I don't think it's an easy task, but from the point of view of how the world is changing, I agree with so much of what the previous speakers have said. I really like Amit's comment on anti-fragile. I think every HR leader needs to role model and propagate that mindset in organizations, because that's what will allow organizations to survive and thrive. But it's the co-development of work. I really think that's what's going to be happening more and more that isn't so much happening today, is this agile co-development of work and purpose work, where people aren't just getting jobs, but are looking to, aren't just looking out for retirement, but are looking, looking to work with an organization, gig economy, or as an employee, it doesn't matter, to add value to an organization and develop themselves.
Great. Thanks, Brad. So, I mean, we have wonderful thoughts around anti-fragile or the entire focus on learning, or the talent pool that is available to us, or Soumya's pointer on, how we can uplift the community. Raj, of course, spoke about, different ways of working around, gig economy. And Brad, I think you summarized it all really well by saying that I think we need to focus more and more on purpose. So with that, I think we have all the panelists' thoughts, and I had prepared a few questions that I thought that, we could pose. And all of this is leading me to the question around, if there is going to be a dispersed talent pool, if the platforms are going to get more technologically savvy, what are your thoughts on how can organizations what do they need to do today, especially in the COVID context, for being ready for the new normal? And please keep in mind the fact that we're looking at is from, if you could add your industry or HR perspective, that would be great. So if I could ask Amit and Saurabh, since I think both of you spoke a lot about the organizational element, if I could ask Amit and Saurabh to kind of partner on this one, please. Org readiness. What do organizations need to do today for a great, future state? Amit, you'd like to go first? You're on mute, Amit. Um,
Am I audible
yeah.
now?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. So thanks. So now, so when we say that the economy is recovering from the current crisis in whatever form, one thing is very certain, which I mentioned earlier as well in this discussion, that things won't return to the normal. So whether we call it the new normal or the new abnormal, a different mode of leadership has to, emerge, and they have to manage an environment of urgency, high stakes, and uncertainty more than that of the current. Okay, so we need to foster adaptation, helping people to develop the next practices for the new world of business, while we should continue with the best fit practices which are necessary for the current success, which we have seen the current success with. So we need to embrace a kind of a disequilibrium, which will keep people in a state of kind of constant discomfort to induce that change, but not so much of discomfort that they give up. So we need to encourage a kind of a creative disruption by allowing employees at all levels to experiment and develop the culture to even celebrate failures, if that provides learning and insights. So future leaders, in my mind, will be acknowledged for demonstrating something like tenacity during volatility, virtual empowerment, decisional agility, as well as emotional resilience. So the main reason, in my mind, the organizations floundered every time some crisis or the other hit the business world was because they became progressively more fragile. So being encouraged by Brad, when I spoke about this anti-fragile, it reminds me of the Taleb's book on anti-fragile, Things That Gain from Disorder, right? Where he has provided very valuable insights which are relevant for us. He said that some things benefit from shocks. They thrive and grow when exposed to volatility, uncertainty, and disorder. And this he called as anti-fragility, which is beyond resilience or robustness. He said the resilient resist shocks and stay the same, but the anti-fragile gets better.
Thrive. They thrive in that kind of change.
They change for the better. That's the key for anti-fragility. So hence the overarching learning and development objective of today's business organization, in my mind, is to make it future-ready and anti-fragile, which can make it more resilient and demonstrate proactive responsiveness to withstand that shock and change for the better. So investing in the learning agility is no longer an option for us. It's a necessity in today's world of business. So we need to constantly invest in our future competencies like learning agility, critical thinking, empathy, cognitive diversity, creativity and innovation, design thinking, and at the same time, we need to push the digital savviness in the organization so that we can embrace the right technology, which I think Raj sort of mentioned about the SPAC model, to scale up our cognitive intelligence and at the same time drive employee productivity and experience in the first place. So HR need to connect with the heart and minds of our employees, which we always do, connect the purpose and bring a sense of urgency and responsiveness. And at the same time, we need to create a shared vision and communicate that very powerfully to the organization. So in my mind, in a nutshell, the sure short way to increase that anti-fragility quotient for future fit organization is to vaccinate the organization with the right learning agility doses and de-risk it against any kind of potential black swan event in the future.
Sure. Thanks, Amit. So your thoughts, I mean, if we can stick maybe to the thoughts that you may have on organizations, how could, let's say, the business leaders in an organization, what can they do to support the entire fit for future readiness? What would your advice be to your peers in business?
Sure. So let me start with what organizations' workforce may get redefined and what can be the alternative work arrangements. So technology is transforming the jobs, as I shared earlier. So many organizations now are actively using crowdsourcing efforts to generate new ideas, solve problems, and design complex systems. So it's an incentive now to convert the fixed labor costs in the form of what we have permanent employees to a variable labor cost, which is incurred when you need it, when the business demands it. So secondly, for workers, it will be that they will seek, work experiences, exposing them to more diverse projects and helping them develop more rapidly than a single employer like 30 years long career. So third factor driving the growth of gig economy will be the desire of workers who are marginalized and underemployed. It can be looked at from a gender viewpoint. It can be looked at from a generational viewpoint. but I think at some point of time, it will make more broad spectrum of workers who can join the workforce.
Right.
Coming quickly, what will be implications for the organizations? Definitely, be more technology savvy and introduce new learning platforms to reskill your workers, and that's something that Amit has spoke. But other 2 points that I had in my mind. One was source and integrate talent across networks globally. So now that we know and we have tested it out in last 6 months that remote working is possible, why would I not hire a person sitting out of 2,000 miles away for my project if he or she is the best person? So just thinking from that mindset will make organizations be more diverse. Second, implementing more, I would say, implementing new models of organization structure, leadership, culture, and even rewards. Because hierarchical structures will no longer be suited. We are not doing routine tasks, but we are moving from more creative work, and we have now more diverse work groups. So what they would require is more of an inspirational leadership than the leaders in extrinsic rewards like a cash compensation or even a promotion. But as nature of work will shift to a more creative, short-term project-based arrangements, people would like to look at intrinsic rewards, like what Brad said, purpose, what is the impact of their work, and opportunity for them to grow and develop. Thank you.
Sure. Thanks, Amit and Saurabh, and I think we have some really amazing pointers which have come to. Just to quickly summarize for the audience listening in, I think key pointers would be that organizations need to really focus on riding this wave, this time which we are all hit with. It's a good time to look at how we can become more anti-fragile. Of course, we have to ride the wave of technology now. We don't have a choice. And Saurabh, you mentioned the fact that organizations need to invest into having talent, how you talent globally, and how do you also have new models of reward structures in organizations. I think that's a good segue for me to move to the next question, which is now coming closer home, and we're going to talk about the role that HR can play. Now, we've all, I think, agreed and we're happy about it. Not a great time for the world globally, but I truly think that HR needs to scale up and amp up what we've been doing all along. The question that I have is, how can HR support and equip their organizations? When I say organizations, not just the business, the running of the wheels, but also the employees, to be ready for this state that Amit and Saurabh just described, which is the new normal. So what can HR do today across any level, whether you're an HR leader, person, what can they do to equip their organizations to be ready for the work or fit for future? I'm looking at Nathan, you, Soumya, or maybe for this one we can have Brad, because I do want to bring in the purpose in. So Soumya, the next question's got your name written on it, but Nathan and Brad, if you could maybe bring in that, it'll be interesting to see the perspectives of an HR leader and somebody who's running it, you're running your own enterprise, Brad. So Nathan, you want to go first? Mute. Unmute.
Yes. Now I'm all
Wonderful.
set.
Yes.
So we've been speaking about how we've got to ready ourselves for the organization, working from home, what the implications are. There's a very interesting thing that's happened recently, which is there is greater reliance on employer as a social safety net. So should we really be looking at a chief well-being officer? So start to focus on mental health, which is something that is starting to lurk around the corner. Gig working, future of work, almost 30% of our people are going to be gig. Another very interesting thing which has happened is brand equals company's response to COVID. So how can we ready us of people, because for them this is the key, and your response defines your brand. Some people find work from home is easy, is good. For some, they find it very difficult, almost dehumanizing. So working with people on things like EQ, planning for empathy, orientation, because this is now taking a new dimension. You're looking at
Right.
outcome. You're not looking at how many hours you have clocked. Overnight,
Correct.
the organization has become hugely complex. Culture, value proposition of human resources. So we really need to start to look at things completely all over. One, so what do we need? Intellectual curiosity and empathy. We need to start to, our HR business partners must have the desire to learn, understand our goals in the new, I won't even say new normal because there's always a new
Should
emerging normal.
always, yeah, that's true.
So I will say the new emergent normal, that because that happens to be. Additionally, I think they must keep a deep caring for the business workforce and be proactive behind all of this. We have spoken about risk taking and courage. I think this is the time for HRBPs to stand up and say no and offer alternative opportunities for our business leaders, because this is where we got to stand up. If our people are feeling so pummeled to the wall, because I don't think we really knew how to work. 9 to 5 was easy, or 9 to 6 was easy. Even 9 to 9 was easy when you're going into work and coming back. But sitting at home in front of a computer and people, making all kinds of demands is different. Digital
Right.
acumen, that's going to be new. Understanding, because networking today also is absolutely new. I think it's also important for us to understand the change management skills that are required for our HR partners, because they must be able to identify in advance what the changes are, because this whole thing is spanning in front of them as opportunities all coming in. And of course, discretion, because several of them in their own careers are also pretty stressed out. And this point was brought out earlier as well. Physician, heal thyself. It's important to take a look at this. And with your permission, Samida, I'm going to share a small story.
Please, Nathan. Of
So,
course.
this is a story of a certain calamity that occurred, where there was almost overnight complete deforestation that happened. All trees were kind of swept away, and of the remaining that were around, people started pounding it and cutting them, chopping up. There was an old grandfather and a young grandson, and the grandson comes up and says, Grandpa, tell me, why are there no birds around this place? And the grandfather says, that's because there are no trees. So why are there no trees? And the grandpa gives all kinds of reasons. And the child says, but we can plant trees. And the grandfather looks at him and says, really? And the child, the innocence was not lost. He went and planted a tree. And every day he planted 10 of these saplings. And he went on to keep planting this for another 25 years of his life. Today, you have lush forests in India all owed to this one person. And today the birds are back. The forest is full of flora and fauna. We have not forgotten this man. And this gentleman is Padma Shri Yadav. Padma Shri Yadav is the name of this person. I think it's important for all HR leaders. Why HR leaders? Any of us, all of us. We need to just not admire the problem, but like that child, take the moment, plant a tree. Do something that will leave a legacy. So that's the story, and that's how I'd like to conclude about the response that HR leaders have to take.
I think
Back
it's
to
a
you.
beautiful response and a lovely story. Analogy is great. I think rather than, feel worried with the problem, just take action. Somebody has to take the action. So thank you, Nathan. Brad, your thoughts on how everyone can be planting more trees, taking the analogy from Nathan's story. It's a beautiful story.
It's a beautiful story, yes, and it's
a
so
beautiful
apropos.
story.
Without sort of thinking, is it in terms of what are the competencies of HR people for the future? And in analyzing the question and adding value to the organization, I think one thing that HR people have been taught in the past is about biases. But I think a skill, a competency that's going to become even more important is becoming a truth seeker, a fact finder, because we live in a world that has so much information, an overload, and there's such a bias to the information, not so much in terms of the content, but also the media that's delivering the information. And I mean that in the broadest sense. I don't just mean social media. And what got me thinking about this was a question, that expression, what's keeping you up at night? And as a lifelong HR practitioner, I'm being very, humbled with the question that's keeping me up at night is, why do we struggle to really understand the culture of organizations when we have so much information? And I'm not trying to pick on any organizations, but some organizations in recent years that have gone through some transitions in terms of their brand, companies like Uber, even a stalwart like Google, we've all probably referenced in the past few years for some best practice or something else. If we know their history, we know that they've also had some issues in the past few years. Why is it that we have such a misconception of truth? And I think coming back full circle to the role of HR and organizational value, I think there's something that we have to do in terms of transparency and culture, something that we have to champion the value of not becoming noise to the machinery that is our times, but in terms of the value proposition of being very truthful, non-biased, inclusive, and fact finder. We're entering an age of technology where we're going to start to see political commercials that have been created by computers that don't represent any reality. What do we do with that change in our stimuli? So I think in some ways it's a challenging time, but I also think for the type of people, I have an expression that I say to people, and it kind of relates to this idea of anti-fragile. If something can be automated, it was never HR in the first place. And I get a lot of pushback from that. But I think if you're a strategic HR leader, you've never thought of HR as a progressive, transactional, operational, strategic role. You've always positioned it as strategic. All types of work, including HR. Yep. So in terms of preparing organizations, we have to adopt that growth mindset that many of the speakers have talked about and role model the behavior of continuous learning and getting ahead of sort of.
Great. Thanks, Brad. So before we move to the next question, quickly summarizing, I think, Nathan, your idea of looking at wellness and, starting out with the, keeping the intellectual curiosity and empathy alive for HR. A lot of times people do say that, why HR? Everyone, but I tend to sometimes use the terminology that HR or, the Indian Army, some of them are like the elder sibling. You may or may not want to feel responsible, but it needs to start with us, like the planting of the tree. The change management skills and the risk taking and courage is something that HR needs to keep in mind. And Brad, thanks for bringing in this piece around, with so much information available, can HR help us create that transparency and value based culture? So some of the areas that HR can play a strong role in, and that also brings me to another very pillar. And Soumya and Raj, when you were talking, I think this question is most apt if I were to ask you this. Now, with all of this happening that Amit spoke about, and Brad and Saurabh and Nathan, with the gig economy, etc., another very critical pillar that we need to look at is the pillar of compliance and governance and ethics, basically also supporting communities or employees. There's always this fear, what will happen to my job, etc., right? So what steps would you suggest to organizations that they can take now so that they are prepared and they're more compliant with the new rules and policies surrounding, let's say, dispersed locations, different rewards, data privacy, information security? What are some of the things that organizations can do today or think about so that we're not getting overwhelmed with these issues soon enough in future? Raj, do you want to go first?
Sure. I think if you poll CHROs the world over, this will come up as one of the issue, which is not letting them sleep. Now coming to
Right.
or legal landscape all across the world is one thing which has become critical for success for companies that operate in multiple geographies. In developed economies, if you say they want to reduce their immigration, keeping track of those laws when it comes to this due pay in UK, transfer of undertaking and production of employment, or whether European laws with like excess directive rights, etc., they are going through a shift. GDPR is another one which is
That's
coming.
right.
Now, within our own country, if we look at it, there are multiple labor laws, which are being codified into 4 laws. So wage bill is coming in, industrial relations is coming in, social security and code is coming in. So all over the world, there is a thrust around compliance. And in my sense, because of this COVID, as I touched upon on this gigs part, so new legislation will come up across, across the parliaments world over, and we need to keep track of it, because we do not have a choice as a individual company but to abide by them.
Right.
So this is what I see, that keeping track of the shifts is critical to the success of CHROs. Thank you. Over to you.
Okay. Sure, Soumya. From keeping track, I think your thoughts, because you're very closely associated with a lot of the workforce that's in an industry which can be very like you said, artists and small and medium scale as well. So before we move to the audience Q&A, I think this was the last question. Soumya, over to you.
I think Raj has summed it up beautifully well, that there are changes happening around the world and people are looking at certain compliances in a very different way than we used
Right.
to. But however, what has also happened is that at an HR level and at the leadership level, the first thing that people need to understand is, please accept that change has come. More often than not, I'm seeing a lot of blocked mindsets that are coming to play, saying that, this too shall pass. However, yes, this too shall pass, but there will be a difference that will be created in your and my life. That acceptance has to come around in, especially the kind of, industry that I represent. That is something that we as, the HR leaders are enforcing and are trying to bring that shift. Second, what is happening is that, the big daddies who were taking, the CCTV cameras are no longer relevant anymore because you're working from home.
Right.
So now that is where, the ethics, if I would say, is what you yourself the wrong way. No, it is up to us. And an element of trust that absolutely has to come into play. Work from home is stretching beyond the norms. It is no longer a 9 to 5. It is 9 to 9, 9 to 10, and probably 24/7. So, we all need to come to have that understanding, that empathy that all of us are talking about, that we need to also structure the same kind of environment side to bring it and create an offsite. So these are a few of the things that I would say. Interestingly enough, in one of our meetings, we also saw cases of POSH coming up, which was very surprising, that how would that happen in the virtual world? But we are seeing certain cases like
it's gone online now.
Online.
Sadly.
Correct.
Yeah.
Sadly enough. But then we are dealing with all of these. So yes, with a newness, with a change, we are dealing with all of this. So I would
Thanks so much. Thanks so much, Soumya. I think that's very nice. I know we're running a little tight on the time, so I'm going to hand it over, to Helen and everyone, and just for the audience, because we've had some amazing things. I've been making keynotes and circling as a sentiment cloud. So I think just to summarize, basis what all the panelists have said, some things that really stood out for me, and even if we walk away with all of this in our mind. Um, Starting with Amit, I think Amit, your the whole focus on becoming anti-fragile, not just resilient, but really becoming anti-fragile, which is celebrating failure, try, experiment, learn fast. It's okay, and have that learning agility is fantastic. Nathan, loved your thoughts, the story, but for sure, I think I'm going to take back the piece on empathy and heart, of HR to be aligned to the fact that our courage and resilience needs to be in sync with what we're trying to achieve as an outcome. Wellness, the whole purpose that HR can bring. And Brad, of course, in your case, also the fact that we are moving into a new norm, and we have to be prepared in terms of how do we filter that information as HR or anyone for our leaders, our employees, and keep that in keep that top of mind. Saurabh, you were very particular about also calling out that talent is available, and it's it's for grabs. It's for yours to take, as long as we can have structures and models that can support it. It's a global economy, and it'll be sad if we don't use this chance to look at talent. Soumya, I think beautiful points on the fact that there's a whole community at stake, and trust is going to be critical, whether it comes to, it's about ethics or lifting people even from the junior most levels to help them survive and thrive in a very difficult time the world is facing. So thanks, Soumya. And I think as business leaders, it doesn't matter which industry, I think all of us need to keep that top of mind. And Raj, I think really nice points, especially something that we can all expect. Gig economy, I think Nathan quoted a number like a 30-40%, almost everybody's working from home, and people will start moving to contract employment. What are the laws going to be around it? How will you reward them? How do they work? How do you have these super teams? So I think amazing thoughts that if we start thinking about today, this was like a crash course. So, my dad would always say that an hour spent, with amazing folks is like 10 years worth of learning. I don't know how many years of learning I've had sitting with all of you. And wonderful thoughts that I'm taking back for my Fit for Future journey for Vodafone as well. But I hope the audience has gained a lot. Do we have any audience questions? Because we could take maybe 2 or 3.
Yes, of course. We have quite a long list, but I will restrict
Maybe
to a few of them, Samida.
Yes, that'll be
First of all, thank you, everybody. Samida, you rocked. Excellent. Said it was such a compressed, such crisp talk.
Yeah,
and it was fantastic. I learned a lot myself. I would like just one, in the interest of time, develop resilience among their employees. Probably answered before, but there you go.
Yeah.
Anyone?
Amit, do you want to take this, since you spoke about the org resilience and anti-fragility?
I just dropped a message. I need to sign off for another meeting, but quickly,
Yes.
I told you that I have a 3:30 meeting starting. Already started.
That's right.
So see, the way I would like to respond to this is that if you have to be very candid and put my hand on my heart, I don't think there is any blueprint available for us to create that resilience and fragility that we're talking about to make us ready for the future. Because see, the impact and implication of this crisis that's getting unfolded still, actually we have, as an HR community, we have an immediate responsibility and opportunity as well to continuously gain much deeper understanding of our most critical asset, which is our people. So you have to adopt more and more outside-in approach. We need to have the right mindset, skill set, and tool set to capture the changes in the marketplace, the changing customer preferences, and continuously deploy a design thinking framework. What I mean by design thinking framework,
and customer in mind.
To constantly ask the question, what is the expectation of my customer from me? Yeah. Do I have the current capability to develop that expectation or deliver that expectation? And what are the capability gaps and how do I bridge it? I think that's what you need to ask. And Nathan spoke about this risk management framework. I think we, especially at a time, we need to deploy this risk management process at a time when the sun is shining and when there's no clouds in the horizon. This is the right time for us to adopt that, what we call that adaptability framework, which has 3 anchors primarily, which is primarily the commitment to outcome, the adoption at heart, and navigating for the future. And then marry it with the HR, change management framework, which is about program design, employee experience, and the governance. This 3x3 model in my mind is the right approach for us to adopt at this point of time to create that future resilient and the anti-fragility in the organization that we are talking about. And that's the only way when the new normal is showing a high degree of complexity and unpredictability. For us also, we have to collectively demonstrate a higher degree of resilience, creativity, agility, and embrace the right technology to reimagine the future business scenarios and navigate through that uncharted terrain, which will make us emerge as a winner like we have always done in the past.
Okay, thank you very, very much.
Thanks, Amit. And you to step out so we can say bye to Amit now.
Yeah, absolutely.
Amit, thank you for joining.
Fantastic session. We enjoyed it.
Wonderful having you. Thank you, Amit.
There are a lot of other questions, but there is a question on D&I, which I think we will be covering on day 3 or day 4. So I think I would defer that question to that panel.
Sure.
But there is a specific question to Nathan, the storyteller. So now that mass work from home has happened, work from home has happened en masse, will his organization continue this model? And if yes, what are the checks that he thinks will be there?
Well, that's a great question. So the short answer is, having tasted the sweet success of work from home, I think this model will continue. It helps organizations in a couple of ways. One is, it has, at one end, if you play this right, it's a matter of balancing. There are people who travel, as I mentioned, 2 hours to work one way. So you're cutting down on the commute time. But people need that social interaction. So if you can have a model where you have about, let's say, about 30, 40, 50%, depending entirely on the kind of industry we are in, if we can encourage people working from home, there are multitude of benefits that happen both to an organization, because it's going to cut down on its, several costs at one end, and also recognize that when people come into work, they're also in this world, they're traveling in buses and trains and cars and all kinds of things. So there is a notional risk attached to it. So this model is going to continue. What's going to change? We really have to put in some very interesting policies to place. Right now, in the country, we have approximately 16% of people, of firms, who are what I quote as checking on people whether they are really at their work desk. I think we've got to move away from all of this and start to look at, can I be gracious enough to understand that this is a world that believes in trust? There was a study which has been done for over 20 years, and more than 1 million people were interviewed in all these 20 years. Great Places to Work has come out with a study, and they say that the single biggest predictor of success in an organization and happiness in people is building up of trust. So we have to move away from checking on whether somebody's at work. But however, we will have to stay invested in ensuring that just because you find some empty space on a calendar, you just don't presume that somebody is free, because there's also a think time for people. So our greatest opportunity is, how do we educate our people to working successfully from home? So, there's a think time there, there's a do time there, there's a review time there, and of course a time for having your call-ins. In fact, we do one more thing. In Deloitte, we do something very interesting. Knowing that this is very stressful for people, we have carved out 30 minutes a week. 30 minutes a week on everybody's calendar is a time carved out, which is called Each One Reach One. Each One Reach One. All you have to do is pick up the phone, call somebody, and have your general whatever. What it does is, you're more likely to speak out to a friend of yours and express your frustration or your happiness, and also get to understand what's happening on the other side. And that way, mutually, we can help. Short answer, yes, this is a model which will continue, but we'll have to work very hard on the model to bring in all the elements that will satisfy both the organization and the people there. Back to you.
Excellent. Thank you so very much. Samida, would you like to wrap up, please?
Yes, yes, why not? I think, no, I think just a very, very genuine thank you from the core of my heart. Many of us have known each other. I've also had a chance to connect with many of them to discuss this. I just wanted to let you know that it's been wonderful to have your thoughts. This would be what I would call a power-packed capsule, if for the audience. And I think we've had a great discussion. I want to thank each one of you. So Brad, Saurabh, Soumya, Raj, Nathan, and Amit, who's now on another meeting. You are brilliant you were brilliant panelists, but I think more importantly, you're amazing HR leaders. And I'm sure the audience is taking lot away from this panel discussion. So thank you so much, and a big round of applause also for Impact Global. I think this is no mean feat to organize something at this scale, so yeah,
Thank you.
I think big round of applause. It's wonderful for the fraternity. Thank you so much.
Thanks
It's
a
been a
lot. And
pleasure.
thanks,
Thank you, everybody.
the entire panel will write